Flash video tutorials. We're so excited, Mr. Davis. Please make more. We want to watch them all. All right, I'm going to get started by creating a new ActionScript 3.0 document. If you don't know how to do that yet, you've got problems. This video is going to be about functions, specifically an introduction to functions. So I'm going to go ahead and save as Intro to Functions video. Save. I already have one, so I'm just replacing mine. And I'm going to get started by renaming layer 1 to actions because we're good practicing people. I'm going to select my actions layer, frame 1, tap F9 to bring up my actions window, and now we can begin. So let's start with a comment saying intro to functions, and first let me explain what a function actually is. A function is a block of code that can be reused over and over again. Functions will save you time because you only need to write them once, and then you can use them multiple times. And using them is also called calling them. So if you hear me say calling a function, that just means using the function. So we have multiple parts of a function. I'm going to show you how to create one really quick. So say create a function. Oops. So the way we create a function is kind of similar to how we create variables. First, we have to give it the keyword for functions, which is function. So for variable, it's var. For functions, it's function. Then we have to give it a name, and the name is the naming style or convention is just like creating a variable. So for this, I'm going to just name it my function. We need to give it what's called arguments. I'm not going to go over this just yet or in this video, so just go ahead and put an open parenthesis, close parentheses, and then we need to give it a return type. I'm also not going to go over this in the video, but for now the way we do this is put a colon and then write the word void, all lowercase. So to finish, like our if statements, we put a curly bracket to open and press enter, and then it'll put a curly bracket to close. Functions do not end with a semicolon because you end them with a pair of curly brackets, just like our if statements. So let me explain again. We have our function keyword to say that this is our function. We've given it a name of my function. We've given it arguments. Well, it doesn't have any arguments, so we just have an open and close parentheses here. We have a colon telling it it's going to return type void. And this means that it's not going to return anything. But like I said, I'm not going to go over that just now, but it's not returning anything, so we don't have to worry about it. You do have to put this void thing with the colon at the end. So explaining a little further, we have our function, and inside of our curly brackets, we will write the code that will be reusable, so that every time we call our function, that code will get run. So for now, I'm just going to write trace, what do you want to say? Inside my function, in the double quotes and the parentheses, and end the line with a semicolon. So if you haven't noticed, the way we've written out trace is kind of similar to how my function works, and that's because trace is a function that Flash has already created for us, but this function here we're just creating on our own. So every time we're going to call my function, we're going to call the trace function and write out inside my function. So just to demonstrate, I'm going to save real quick and run. And in our output, we have nothing. But Mr. Davis, we told it to trace out inside my function when we created the function. What's going on? Well, what's happening here is we've created our function, but all we've done is create it. We haven't actually called it, and although we created it, we're not using it yet. So although it's here, we're not using it. So the way we call our function, let's write this out. Call a function. You just write out its name, my function, and then you do open parentheses, close parentheses, end the line with a semicolon. When I go over arguments more in the future, there can be some stuff inside the parentheses, just like in our trace function here, but this has nothing in it. So we want to match that, nothing in it here as well. So now if we go and run it, you can see that it says inside my function. And to prove to you that you can call it multiple times and reuse this, I'm going to make this happen 5 times. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Save and run. I'm going to prove I'm not a liar. And now we have inside my function going 5 times. Now let's go ahead and make this a little more useful. So let's go ahead and create a variable type integer. So I'm going to say create unint. Excuse me. Proper grammar is important. So say var my int type int, and let's set it equal to 0 to begin. So one of the things that you can use a function for is to change the value of a variable. So this is very simple, very basic, but it should explain the concept. So underneath my function, or sorry, inside of my function, we want to change the value of my int. So let's go ahead and write out. Actually, let's do this first. But before we change my int, we're going to write out what it is. So trace before function changes. Let's put a colon, little space, plus my int. So what this, oops, there you go. So what this is going to do here, it's going to say, before the function changes the value of my int, show me what my int is. Then we're going to actually change my int. So I'm going to say my int plus equals, oops, 1, if I can type. Let's put a comment above that saying add 1 to my int. And then we're going to say at the very bottom, after my function changes my int, let's go ahead and throw on my int right here. So what it's going to do is going to say before, let's change this to my function just to keep it consistent. So before my function changes my int, show me what my int is, change my int, and then show me what it is after it changes. So this is going to happen 5 times. So I'm going to save and run, and now we've got a ton of stuff here. Let's go. So we start at 0, it changes it to 1, we go from 1 to 2, from 2 to 3, 3 to 4, and 4 to 5. So that's pretty much it. Your function will only get called if you specifically call it. Remember, we have the keyword function to tell it it's a function, give it a name, give it arguments, which for now are just open and close parentheses, a colon to tell it the type it's going to return, and right now we're not returning anything, so we just put void. And then we have a pair of curly brackets saying what's going to happen when we call our function. Everything between our curly brackets is what's going to happen every time we call our function. So that's it for the introduction to functions. I'll go over some more stuff again in the future.